So we're talking about Evanston, Illinois. Evanston is this small town right above Chicago, and it's basically a city for old people who don't want to live in Chicago anymore, so they move here to retire. They're like, oh, I'm just so tired of all the Chicago craziness. I want to live right over here. And then they move to Evanston. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the real reason Evanston became a city, but what you do need to know is that it is not the same thing as Chicago. For all of its life, Evanston was a humble town. They were anti-big business, they were pro-quiet, and they were anti-fun. All of their laws and ordinances embraced this. They had strict rules, very strict building development limits, and they absolutely hated fast food. Everything was normal for Evanston. But then I introduce to you a special man, a very evil character, Mr. Zwiefel. In the 70s, he was an Evanston resident, a very bourgeois member of the community, the owner of the gorgeous, beloved Orantes Hotel in Evanston. He owned a ton of other lavish companies, and you know the type, right? Like, you know this kind of person. He's got a ton of money. He's wheeling and dealing. He's got all these big plans, right? Like, he makes all these big plans. And his next greatest scheme, he's going to take the little triangle lot that he owns right next to his Orantes Hotel, and he would pair up with a company that's trying this new thing in America, this new thing that America's doing now. They're calling it fast food. It's this thing where basically he would be able to sell below average burgers to the students at the Evanston College for crazy cheap and make a huge profit. Oh, he already owned the lot. This was genius. But how would that ever get past city council? Oh, I promise you he thought of that already. And get ready, because this plan is so evil. Only someone with a name like Mr. Zwiefel could come up with something this nefarious. But surely, there's no way Loctite Evanston would ever let their little pristine downtown be infiltrated by a fast food restaurant. Would they? Welcome to ARCHWOAH with Mason O. This is a story about the first fast food restaurant that appeared in downtown Evanston. A sneaky little secret plan that caused a zoning catastrophe and opened the floodgates for more fast food in downtown. This is a story about a completely unique Burger King with a sun lounge and 185 chairs. This is a story about how a restaurant could create years and years and years of a cultural black hole. This is the architectural history of the Burger King in Evanston. So, ARCHWOAH, we ask the question, what is architecturally unique about the Burger King in Evanston? Well, the architecture is really more the story of a city council zoning disaster, which is not really so much about the building, but don't worry, we of course will cover the building itself. But once Evanston gave the permit for this restaurant, they saw it as a huge mistake. Having the first fast food restaurant appear in downtown set an unwanted precedent, and similar restaurant owners just started inundating city council with applications, and that moment just became a pivot point in Evanston's development forever. It was like city council got a tattoo that they could never get rid of. And a big tattoo of a cheeseburger. So here we go. So 3-part story, architecture of the BK in Evanston. Here we go. Part 1, what I call the bag curse. Part 1, the bag curse. I'll explain what that means. Part 2, the architecture of the building itself. And Part 3, the king is dead. The king is dead. We're going to talk about what building took its place in 2024. So this is about the architectural history of the BK. So this episode will not cover anything about what was on the menu or Burger King the brand or any of the hundreds of late night police calls that came out of this place for petty crimes. Not even the one with the headline, "Man Breaks Cash Register with Bare Hands." A lot of that stuff is relevant to the story and does relate, but it's just good to know the context. We're primarily on this show going to be looking at the building. So here we go. So the three-part story of the architecture of the BK in Evanston. The Burger King had to deliver a pretty big lie in order to trick Evanston City Council that they were not a fast food restaurant, and they did get away with it, and Evanston was pissed when they figured out what was going on, but it was too late. They already granted the permit. So in order to preserve just a shred of their dignity, City Council shakes their fist back at BK and they say, fine, you want to act like you're not a fast food restaurant? We're going to treat you like you're not a fast food restaurant. And they strictly stuck to their city ordinance, which said, restaurant staff may not serve food to a customer in a bag. Okay, so the year is 1975, right? You're an Evanston resident. The year's 1975. You just got your ticket to this new horror movie. It's called Jaws. It's about a shark, and the Vietnam War has just ended a little while ago. That's on your mind. Richard Nixon, the dudes who just committed Watergate, they're still pulling up new evidence about those guys. Okay, so it's a normal day in the quiet life, easy life of Evanston, just like you've always known. There's no place to eat something quickly downtown. It's always been that way. Evanston at the time was very anti-fast food, especially downtown. There were no downtown restaurants on purpose. Evanston ordinance states a restaurant is either type 1, sit down, or type 2, fast food. They wrote it this way so that they could always know when a fast food restaurant was applying for a permit. Okay, so type 1, sit down, real restaurant, type 2, fast food, type 1 and type 2. So, I mentioned Mr. Zwiffel, right? Now, I've never seen a picture of this guy in all my researching, but I just get the feeling that he's got a top hat and the twirly mustache and a black cape, and he's 6'6", and anyway, so Mr. Zwiffel, this guy, he is a tycoon. Okay, tycoon. He's got motor companies, he owns hotels, he owns all this real estate, he's got all these steakhouses, and, of course, he owns the precious triangle-shaped lot right next to Orantes Hotel in Evanston, literally across the street from the university. That is Northwestern University, by the way, in Evanston. So what is Mr. Tycoon gonna do with this potential gold mine of a property? Well, someone from this growing brand that just started in the 50s, spreading like wildfire in America, called Burger King. A franchisor approaches him and tells him about the wonderful business model of fast food, and Mr. Zwiffel is like, damn, you know what? That sounds like it would work like a charm on college freshmen. And he starts devising his scheme. So the big question now, right? How are we going to get a fast food restaurant permitted in Evanston? Well, I own all these steakhouses. Let's just put the Burger King franchise not under my name, under my steak company, Chart House Incorporated. Chart House Incorporated. Let's just disguise it. If we make this place look like one of my steakhouses, a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer, that's what they'll think it is. Oh my gosh, are you serious? How are you going to modify a BK to look like a steakhouse? Well, we'll say it's the fanciest BK anyone's ever seen. We'll make it large with tons of sit-down areas. We'll use red Spanish tile on the floor, and we'll do the aluminum roof, and it'll be big, it'll be special. We'll draw the plan specifically for Evanston, and we'll say it's specific to the Evanston area. What could possibly go wrong? That's what I imagine Zwiffel sounds like. So it looks like a steakhouse. It's being opened by the steakhouse guy, and it has the same name as a steakhouse. It's just not a steakhouse. It's a Burger King. Man, so here's where the story gets good. If you thought that this evil plot slipped right through the cracks, no way, muchacho. Evanston was not born yesterday. I'm about to read to you a chronological series of letters going back and forth between City Council and Zwiffel's absolute gang of goons on the building team who were all in on the secret. What you will beautifully notice in all of these letters is that the words Burger King don't show up on any of them. Not in the subject line, not in the application name, not in the construction drawings, not anywhere, nowhere. The whole entire team knew, don't spill the beans. They understood the assignment, or as some like to say, they knew the MO. Anyway, every time they had to fill in the blank, they wrote something to the effect of a restaurant for Chart House. It's so good. So here we go. So, October 1974, Zwiefel applies for the demo permit to demolish the existing building on the Triangle lot. Okay, he demolishes that. A year later, September 1975, Zwiefel applies for a foundation permit only, 5,000 square feet, calling it restaurant and calling the applicant Chart House. Okay, now I thought that was pretty clever. Okay, the city sees Zwiefel on the demo and Chart House on the foundation for a restaurant. He already early on lets the city infer that he's bringing them one of his big legacy restaurants. That's a slick maneuver. And same time as the foundation permit, architect sends in a letter that says the restaurant shall conform to all codes and standards. Here we go. Okay, so November 1975, foundation permit granted. This is from the city. Look at this. Chart House Inc. Foundation only for restaurant. This is hilarious. Okay, so Zwiefel is like, 1 down, 2 to go. All they need now is the building permit and the business license, okay? Everyone stay focused, okay? Everyone stay focused. Remember the plan. Okay. Next month, the building application goes in. The drawings are in for review. Chart House this, a restaurant that, okay? And then one member, this absolute goober, the head of construction at Chart House, what are we going to do with this guy? He sends a letter to the city saying, hey, I resubmitted a set of drawings showing the furniture layout for future Chart House restaurant. Please approve, thank you. And this idiot sends it on a Chart House Inc. letterhead, which has tiny text saying Divisional Operations of Burger King written in the corner. Oh my God. Oh my God. He sends that on December 3rd. Oh my God. Did the city see it? I guess not, because on December 5th, the building permit was granted. That was a close call. Oh my gosh. So here we go. So that's it. The building permit was granted. Look at this. Not kidding. A restaurant. Chart House Inc. All the subcontractors listed. This is gold, baby. Can you believe the ambiguity? Oh my gosh. So they start building, baby. They start building. Construction start. Hit the ground running. Foundations in. Steel's going in. Oh my God, it's happening. Okay. Sanitary inspections. Chart House Restaurant. Got it. Slump test inspections. Chart House Restaurant. Got it. Parking calculation checks. Chart House Restaurant. Got it, okay? January 1976. They are almost in the clear. One more form to get. The business license, okay? And right about now, this is when Zwiefel's plan first springs a leak, and it all goes downhill from here. The architects, the construction guys, they're all sending revised drawings, signed and sealed packages that say Chart House Restaurant. But there start to be whispers in the community. Rumors. What are they building over there on that triangle lot? Okay, the building is half constructed, and everyone can see it when they're walking on the sidewalk. And I promise you that it was those sleuthy little students who let the cat out of the bag. Those kids, they just know everything. They caught wind that they were about to get a Burger King, and they were super excited. They made those rumors spread like wildfire. Fast. And these rumors, they get out to all the citizens. The citizens start getting confused. The old crotchety people want answers. Everyone's confused about what's in the city code. Why are we seeing a fast food restaurant? And of course, the student hype just keeps growing and growing. February 1976. The rumors and controversy reach city council, and they are scared. Why does everyone keep bringing up the steakhouse we permitted? It's supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday. Why are the students acting insanely giddy? Everyone's whispering about the building on the corner lot. Everyone keeps mentioning Burger King. The city is so nervous now. Could this mean what they think? They don't have any hard evidence that it's going to be a Burger King. So they send this letter out to Chart House, and they effectively say, we don't know what you're doing, but you better not be trying to pull a fast one on us. We have our eyes on you. Here's a reminder of what our ordinance states about what a Type 1 restaurant is supposed to be. Yeah, you go get 'em, Evanston. So here we go. So February 1976, we get this letter from an alderperson. That's kind of like one tier below mayor. And she says to city council, "Why are my constituents directly asking me about the building on the corner? And why do they keep saying Burger King? Did you rezone for fast food? Why would you do something like that? What's going on? What am I supposed to tell my people?" And the city responds to her by saying, "What do you mean? It's a chart house. All good. No worries here. Tell your constituents that it's not a fast food restaurant." Now, after that, they are super suspicious. They say, "Hey, guys, you haven't seen anything on those chart house applications that say Burger King, have you?" And they start looking. Oh, they knew. They knew. Furiously flipping through old papers, they found that old letterhead which said Burger King in the corner. Ugh. They felt like big dummies. They knew exactly what was going on now. And man, Evanston was bitter. All they needed now was hard evidence, something to confront Zweiffel with. But they had nothing. Zweifel's team was good. It never said Burger King on any of the applications. Until Zweifel's team sends in the application for the final document that they needed, the business license. And this guy writes Burger King on the application. Once again, it's one of the nitwits from the Giant Chart House Inc. who screws this up. Maybe he thought city council already knew. Maybe he thought the jig is up. Maybe he never got the lie on every document memo. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. But on this application, he writes, "Retail fast food, Burger King." Boom! Busted! City council had everything they need. Roll out the tanks, baby. They said deploy the cannons. Ready, aim, fire. City council sends this missile right to Chart House and says, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" In full 1970s aggressive politeness, of course, they say, "These two applications do not match. Are you building a steakhouse or are you building a Burger King? Because if you are trying to build a fast food chain store in our downtown, you should have applied as a Type 2. We will revisit your original application and we will know who the real applicant is. And we don't care what a Burger King is supposed to be. You bet your sweet little burger butt we're going to force you to build a real restaurant." But man, that was actually a hollow threat. You got to realize the building's already half built. This was stressful. The only leverage city council had was to enforce their strict sit-down restaurant requirements on what was apparently going to try to be a flippin' Burger King. So now Zweiffel is like, "Damn it, foiled. What bird brain wrote Burger King on the application? Get out of here. You're fired. Get out of here. Oh dear. Well, they can't take back our permit, but they're threatening us. We're not afraid of them. We still have the advantage. If they want a convoluted Burger King, well, we'll give them a convoluted Burger King." And so they get a more competent member of Chart House to respond to the city with the perfectly crafted cover story. He starts by saying, "Please ignore my idiot friend who sent you the application." And then he proceeds to speak on behalf of the company. "Oopsie. Did we get the name wrong on the application? Oh my. Our bad. We weren't trying to trick you, honest. We truly are a Type 1, sit-down, real restaurant. We promise. All good here. Yes, we run Burger Kings, but it's not what you think. We just have so many restaurants. It's just business procedure to write Chart House as the applicant for the name. Honestly, just a mix-up. This is going to meet all the standards that you set and that we agreed to. So, since there's no more confusion," and then they really drive the nail in with this one, "you will give us the business license right now." And city council complied with that. Business license granted. Now, have you ever heard of a win-win situation? This is what I would call a lose-lose situation. Zweiffel gets forced to open a fast food joint with crazy overhead and a city council breathing down their neck. City Council gets a pig wearing lipstick, pig being the Burger King and lipstick being steakhouse decor. And they just, not to mention all the shame of having to see a crappy fast food joint successfully infiltrated their downtown. Oh, Evanston was so anxious. They could just see it now. The late night customers, the crime, the litter. This is gonna ruin downtown. And what is so funny to me about this is that this is really how we did things. These back and forth letters, this is really how we did business. Lying through their teeth, posturing language, typewriters. If you thought that this was the kind of thing, if you thought this kind of thing could never happen, well, think again. Here's how. Man, so immediately, with Chart House holding the business permit, they prepped for the grand opening. And I say prep with a grain of salt. I really don't think that they worked that hard for the ribbon cutting ceremony. Here's an ad from the newspaper which blatantly has the wrong drawing on it. And in May 1976, Burger King number 1664 opens in Evanston, Illinois. And just weeks after opening, we find this. A letter, June 1976. A violation notice from Evanston that says, "Hey, we saw your employees bagging food for customers. You have 24 hours to cut that out, or we are going to fine your little rump." Evanston, so pitiful. This is all they have. And so for 30 plus years, nearly all of BK's life, all customers had to put the food in a bag by themselves at the counter. Hilarious. That ordinance eventually goes away, but I will circle back to that later in the story. So the last thing I'm going to show you here for part one is a quote by one of Mr. Zwiffel's investors. This quote, I just think, really gives you a sense of how contentious the whole culture in Evanston was at this moment. The students were thrilled. Evanston City Council clerks are punching themselves in the face. Chart House is running out the back door with the money. Zwiffel's got dollar signs in his eyes. The old people in Evanston have their panties in a bunch. City Council's trying to explain all this to the press. And one of Zwiffel's investors, this just perfectly captures the impending doom of the moment. This hoity-toity guy, he says, quote, "I would like to salute the Northwestern University faculty for training its students to behave like young ladies and gentlemen. The reception of the Burger King by the students and neighbors in Evanston is great. The restaurant will continue to serve fresh and palatable food at a price the students can afford to pay, and abide by the rules and regulations of the city of Evanston. We wish to thank the students for their beautiful behavior in this new restaurant. Their parents should be proud of them." Ooh, okay, so part two, the architecture. Here we go. Let's talk about the architecture, okay? The building itself, the juicy details. So here we go. So this building is just absurd, right? The most interesting thing that happens to City Council in 100 years, it gives us this wide, fat building on a triangle-shaped lot. This was not a copy-paste BK. I mean, it had to lie about its appearance to even arrive, right? It had a big, obtuse floor plan to fit 185 seats, a major bay of glazing for a sun lounge, and after the remodel, it was given a post-industrial techno look, according to the store owner. So first we're going to start, let's look at the 1976 floor plan, the monster that Chart House got away with. 2,000 square feet just for the dining area. That is huge for a fast food place, especially by today's standards. They did that so that they could have a ton of seating and make it look like dozens of people were going to sit there and eat and have their orders taken by a waiter. We had carpet floor. There was purple and white ceiling with wood paneling. I would love to have seen a color photo of that. Hanging plants in golden bowls. Wow. Ceiling fans. Okay. Over here in the kitchen, they maxed that place out. They basically doubled the kitchen and mirrored it along the axis that intersects with the service counter. That's very interesting to me. I've actually never really seen that before. And across these two kitchens, you had all the bells and whistles. Pie machine, shake machine, giant broiler, okay? Now, also, in the original design, there was a big window atrium in the back corner of the dining area. Remember that. We're going to come back to that in a minute. But something that you are going to notice about the architecture for this Burger King, Chart House always pulled out all the stakes. They always opted to do the most architecturally. And I believe that even though Zwiefel and Chart House played a dirty trick on the city, they had a sense that they were now associated with this big square blob, which was magneting herds of pedestrian college students. And that sort of gave them a cultural image to fulfill. So it feels to me like they wanted to make sure that the inside was comfy and awesome and remarkable. I mean, the floors were still always dirty and the chairs were always empty, but still, it was supposed to be the fanciest BK anyone had ever seen. So that's the architecture from 1976. But over the years, we got flat screen TVs in there. They did the jukebox thing at one point. They did free Wi-Fi starting in 2005. Always Northwestern themed art on the walls. They're doing the most, right? So the big renovation, that comes in 2006. In 2006, that's the 30-year point renovation. And they found a couple of major problems in the building structure, and they were like, oh my gosh, we are not going to try to solve this with some patch and repair. We're not going to do it cheap. This BK needs to be totally gut if we're going to do it right. They started out expecting it to be a small renovation, but just given that the building had been there for 30 years, the age and the condition, it basically needed to be a complete and total renovation. The whole entire roof was failing. All the plumbing needed to be redone. So they were like, yeah, we can't solve this with patch and repair. We need to do it right. And damn it, we're going to do it right for Evanston, right? And that's what they did. They replaced a whole entire failing roof. They redid a whole new floor, all of the plumbing. They moved the bathrooms. That's crazy. They added new vestibule doors for the winter. And of course, they paid special attention to that big atrium window. And this is, and I'm not exaggerating, this is the most important part of the architecture. The BK Lounge. The Sun Lounge, basically an all-glass sunroom on the east side, totally secluded from the main area, a wide-open panorama of the street and of the sidewalk. This was an upgrade from that one big window area. They tucked in the dining room floor and built out glazing to become, as the customers belovingly named it, the BK Lounge. And this area was a massive hit. I mean really think about it. Kids didn't want to eat in their car in a parking lot. They wanted to sit here in the BK Lounge. And no other fast food restaurant had anything like this. The BK Lounge was hip, man. And I gotta tell you, based on the descriptions from the students of the BK Lounge, this was a magical place. It was just exactly the weird, one-of-a-kind feature that you know is only going to exist once. Sometimes they would even refer to the whole entire restaurant as the BK Lounge. Like, oh, 4 a.m., we're going to the BK Lounge. And I presume that if you weren't a BK customer, looking in through that hot, moldy glass from the exterior did nothing for you. But the experience from the inside, oh, if you smoked weed and had the munchies, BK Lounge. If you were hosting a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, BK Lounge. If you were that group of underage high schoolers loitering around on campus, BK Lounge. Or even, this is my favorite, need a fancy spot to rock that first date? BK Lounge. So now you get the vibe of being in there, right? So let me finish telling you about the architectural details from 2006 until the end. One of the features from the renovation was rebuilding the entire roof. They said basically, look, let's just delete the ceiling completely and let BK go for that exposed roof structure look. Yeah, that totally fits here, right? They exposed all the ductwork. They had all the lights just hanging from the ceiling. And something else they did was paint all the walls purple. That's Northwestern's color. And man, did that look good. purple and gray walls. Oh, yeah. And don't even get me started on these two stylish bad boys. Brand new, ultra comfortable booths and 2 lounge chairs with swivel desks. Can you imagine sitting in that in 2006? I can. So you can see how that sentiment of this is a big cozy club for late night bullshitters just lasted through BK's whole life. Now, 1976, that's when the building was open. 2006, that's when the remodel happened. 2020, that's when the building closed, okay? That's roughly 44 years that this building held itself down. Not bad, I suppose. And yeah, so speaking of the end, let's talk about how this Burger King eventually dies. Here we go, part 3. The King is dead. If you go to the site today, I'm sorry to tell you, this crusty old Burger King is gone. Demolished in 2022. So 44 years of this crummy old building was the king of late night in Evanston, lured hungry kids in, stole business from all the other restaurants around, until it got killed. But before we talk about the death of the king, first I have to assuage that burning curiosity that you have. Didn't the bag ordinance eventually go away? Yes, it did. So let's circle back to that. So here we are. So we're 30 years into the life of the Burger King, and Evanston finally bends the knee to capitalism and lets BK have it their way. And they definitely did this very quietly. So let's break that down. So here we go. So really try to imagine this, okay? It's like 1980 something. Burger King is a teenager by now at this point. And at this point, there's fast food all over Evanston, okay? A McDonald's has popped up. There's a Taco Bell over here. There's a burger joint over there. Little fast food yuppies all over downtown. Thank you, Burger King, for your service. And so you're in the BK lounge, and you got your Walkman on, and you got those little tiny 80s headphones on, and your order number is called. You walk up to the counter, and you see the employee, both arms out, fists. In one hand is your Whopper, and in the other hand is a paper bag. And you're like, that's funny. Like, what is this? Like, is this like a prank? And you see that dead look in the employee's eye, and you look over, and there's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper stapled to the wall, and it says in tiny text in the center, Evanston ordinance prohibits bagging of food. Sorry for the inconvenience. And I mean, if Burger King weren't embarrassed enough by this, that crappy little sign was not helping. And you're just here like, what's wrong with this city? And so you walk outside with your Whopper, and you see McDonald's customers over there pulling food out of their bags, and you're putting the food into your bag. I mean, like, come on, man. This, like, I can only imagine something so humiliating. And so the employees hated this. The managers hated it. The customers were always confused. BK would get fined if Evanston caught them breaking the rule. And eventually, it's the citizens who start pushing back. They didn't know the permitting drama from like 20 years ago. All they know is all these other fast food places are bagging me up. Why can't BK bag me up? And so the customers are voicing their opinion. Like, hey, city council, can we stop pretending like that uptight ordinance is doing anyone any good? It's so pretentious. We have fast food restaurants all over downtown. Why are you posturing over BK like this? And BK hated explaining it to every single weirded out customer. So they applied to city council to change their classification. They actually did this a couple times throughout their life, but one significant time around the mid-'80s. And I mean, like, can you imagine the audacity of this? Burger King really goes up to city council and says, oh, come on, Evanston, what? You're not still salty about that time we hoodwinked you 10 years ago, huh? And what? Raised all the crime reports in downtown and increased late night traffic and brought all these annoying fast food applications to your door? Come on. All of that was just a joke. Come, let it go. Take our ordinance away, please. And Burger King applies to reclassify their status as a Type 2 restaurant. And Evanston was like, oh, this is rich, Burger King. Do you know how much you've turned downtown into living hell for us? Last year alone, Evanston Police Department responded to over 180 calls from the BK. Many of them noise complaints from residents. Now we've got all these belligerent youths rendezvousing to your restaurant at unholy hours, getting into gang fights, breaking into people's cars, and worst of all, leaving litter. And of course, BK's lawyers, they're not having it. They're like, come on, those calls happen around the Burger King area. Then they run over here to use our phone and BK's name gets written on the report. Those numbers are inflated. And Evanston says, fine, okay, we'll play ball. You want to reclassify? Fine, we'll let you reclassify if you, A, drop from 24 hours a day down to 20, and B, management keeps the premises litter-free at all times. Evanston's so serious about the litter. These were the terms, okay? Drop from 20 hours down to 20. Management keep the premises litter-free all the time. And can you guess what Burger King said? They said, first of all, that litter is caused by your citizens, not our customers. Second of all, litter schmitter, we're not going down to 20 hours. I'm obviously joking. What they actually said was, we very much wanted to get rid of the bagging requirement, but not at the cost of losing out economically through reduced hours of operation. And they withdrew their application. That's it. Like those 4 hours a night were too critical to profits, apparently. And at this time, Zweiffel is quoted as saying, I wouldn't bet Evanston would give us the reclassification any which way. This isn't the most progressive city in the United States. Yeesh. Definitely get a sense of Zweiffel's mood at that point. But such was the passage of time, and for City Council, after 20 continued years of managing new fast food applications like wrangling cattle, pressure from residents to drop the ordinance, and in my opinion, just one sesame seed amount worth of pity, Evanston finally had enough of the squirming, and they were like, fine. BK will throw you a bone. We are passing this other ordinance next month, and in the process, we're going to word it in such a way that lets you off the hook for your bag ordinance. So in September 2010, they reworded the city code so that a Type 1 stated, the principal use of this place is to have food consumed on premises. Food that is consumed on premises must have had their order taken by staff at a table, booth, or dining counter. That wording gave BK just enough wiggle room to claim that customers could treat BK like a hybrid restaurant if they want, and staff wasn't prohibited from bagging the food. The curse was broken. And I'm pretty sure that city council member winked at BK in the ordinance room as they signed on the dotted line. No, not literally, but city council did specifically reference BK when the press asked about that ordinance change. And listen, it's not like this kiss and make up between city council and Burger King did anything anyway. Burger King was only alive for 10 more years after that. But I will say this, that decade and all the decades before, when BK was in Evanston, all those decades, they were erased without a trace when the building was closed and demolished in 2022. It lived its grubby life until late 2020, and I'm sure you all remember what happened in 2020, right? The pandemic hurt. Business was wrecked. They were out of operation for months, but the lease was ending in 2021, and someone crunched the numbers and said, it looks like we gotta say goodbye for Burger King, and they did not renew their lease. And anyone who was there between 2020 and 2022 saw an unremodeled since the 2000s purple and gray, abandoned BK on the corner with a huge dining area and all the lights off, moldy bricks, and yet another 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper taped to the door that said, "Sorry, permanently closed," and a frowny face. Let's just take a moment for Burger King using 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper to do all its signage, and for all the despondent Evanston teens who walked up to the glass and saw that. But anyway, man, did developers have their eye on that lot? Holy cannoli. They were drooling. The developer who ended up buying the site paid $3.15 million for it. Went through a ton of rezoning with the city so that they could build a skyscraper there, got all their operations in order, and had that building open within 2 years. Honestly, Evanston City Council was pretty ready to wipe BK off the map at that point. At one of the proposal presentations for the skyscraper, a city council member said, "I think the presentation was one of the most comprehensive that we've seen. Evanston should be excited to get this project." And demo began in October 2022. The end. So what are the takeaways here? Let's recall. What is architecturally unique about Burger King in Evanston? Well, here's something you have to understand. To anyone who's not looking at this restaurant from an architectural lens, what they saw is crime, late nights, drunken nights, the inevitability of ending up at BK when it's 3 a.m., nothing else is open. This is what the lay citizens remember. Homelessness, the cheap, low-tier food, the hilariously stupid bagging rule, half-assed service, sleep-deprived tomfoolery in the BK Lounge. That's the memory of the Burger King, okay? Not really the architectural history of the building. And even on top of that, the passing years of BK's cruddy character, there were other very interesting chapters as well. There were employee strikes. There was a racist comedian who visited there once and went on this slur spree towards a black customer. That made Chicago headlines. There was a very fierce battle between McDonald's and Burger King. That's a story in and of itself right there. One time, BK hired a private booting company for illegal parkers, and then it totally backfired in their face. That's very interesting. So I encourage you to look up any of these stories if you wish. The horrendous BK was just definitely an urban black hole, and a lot of Evanston residents ended up there. They got sucked in, and then a crazy story came out on the other end. But all of that is slightly beyond the scope and the time frame of someone just reviewing the architecture. And it's also important to mention, I have no nostalgia for this demolished Burger King building. I never ate there. I don't support a massive conglomerate chain and their sneaky ruse to get a permit so that they could target inconvenienced college kids and sell them unhealthy food. I don't wish that this was still here. But I mean, what does it matter, right? Who cares anyway? Something like this is just one blip in the evolution of civilization. But to tie this whole history lesson together, one thing is for sure. If you walked up to that skyscraper today, the Burger King has left with no trace. You would never know about 44 years of a low-slung, musty, oversized Burger King, 44 years of customer misconduct, or 44 years of fast food mayhem with city council. This place did something very interesting to Evanston, and that is an architectural history worth reviewing. And as one former Evanston alderman put it in 2025, she said, and this just like beautifully sums it up. She said, "Oh, the Burger King? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that triangle was a primary piece of real estate. It could have been used for something much better. But, I mean, I don't think anyone died there, right? Like, nobody died? Yeah. I think the city likes to make a mountain out of a molehill."